Before we actually start writing our 5-minute speech, we need to take a step back and think of something a lot more important, and that is our through line. And that's the first point in these 5 points that we're going to go through, which will help us craft a compelling 5-minute speech. Let's get into it. So the through line, it basically means one single idea that runs throughout your entire speech. The mistake that most of us make when we have a short time span like 5 minutes is that we might focus on multiple messages and multiple ideas, and the audience might just get confused. Even if in our minds we think that we just have one idea that we're putting out there, we need to write it down so that we're always referring to that, drawing references to that throughout our entire talk, so that our entire speech just seems more cohesive. As per the founder of TED Talks, Chris Anderson, when Brené Brown gave her infamous TED Talk called The Power of Vulnerability, her through line was simply, vulnerability is to be treasured, not hidden from. And everything in her speech, from her personal stories to her anecdotes to her research to everything, revolves around that one idea. And that's what makes a compelling speech and a compelling argument. The through line. Now, once we have that in place, we can get into crafting the actual speech. So starting off with the speech opening. If you're giving a speech that's about 1 or 2 minutes long, we usually don't need a very gripping opening. But in a 5-minute speech, it can be worth it to experiment with a few attention grabbers. But the main thing to keep in mind is that in a speech opening, we're trying to draw some sort of disconnect in our audience's current worldview. Everyone has a way of looking at things, and when we can make them question that perception, that's when people will welcome you with their attention. Check out this example by Jamie Oliver. Watch how he opens his speech with a shocking statement that gets everyone's attention right from the beginning.
Sadly, in the next 18 minutes when I do our chat, 4 Americans that are alive will be dead through the food that they eat.
After the opening comes your body. Now, the best way to craft the body of a 5-minute speech is to use narrative structures. We made a whole video on narrative structures that you can check out. It'll be linked somewhere here, but it basically means converting your information into a story format. There are a bunch of different formats that you'll find in this video, as well as in an article that we've written on this, linked in the description below, but a couple of simple ones. The first one is something known as the mountain. This basically means we follow a build-up format. Whatever our through line is, instead of just informing people about it, we crafted it into a compelling narrative. For instance, if we need to give a 5-minute speech on the importance of healthy eating, instead of talking about the facts and the benefits and all of that stuff which people already know and do not get moved by, we can craft a mountain story wherein we talk about one individual, whether it's us or somebody we know, and we talk about their journey, not in the form of facts and figures, but in the form of them being an actual person. An example of this that really stuck with me was, now this is not to do with a 5-minute speech, but it still conveys this point very nicely, is that a lot of companies, a lot of brands and corporates tend to create testimonial videos wherein they'll have some happy customers and they'll ask that customer to say a good word about the company. And the customer will simply take their phone and say something nice about that company. And it usually looks kind of cheesy. And then I saw another testimonial of this personal trainer. Now, he created a video not where this guy's talking about how nice and easy the process was and how happy he was with the trainer. No, he actually started shooting the testimonial even before the results came. So the person that this guy was training was really overweight, and he showed his entire progression, how much he wanted to quit, him actually crying during a workout and going through all the ups and downs of actually losing a lot of weight. And at the end of the video, they show him coming on stage in front of his friends and family and actually showcasing what he did, what he went through, and what he finally achieved. And we all kind of know how he did it. He mainly looked after his diet and he exercised. But when we humanize this information and narrate it instead of informing people, it just becomes so much more compelling. And the second story structure that we can take is something known as in media res. The mountain talks about starting from the beginning and showing the ending, whereas in media res is about dropping the audience right in the middle of your story. Check out this TED Talk by Rick Elias. It's approximately a 5-6 minute speech anyways, and he starts his speech talking about him being inside an airplane that's about to crash. There was no context given as to why he was there, what's going to happen next, nothing. And it makes us want to listen to the rest of the story. So these are two simple structures that we can use to weave information into a narrative. Fourth point, we need to have strong closing. And the simplest way to have a strong closing is to just give our audience a takeaway. What do we want them to remember the most at the end of our speech? Take this example by Brian Cateman.
So this is my message to you. Consider eating less meat this week. and be a reducitarian. You can change the world by ordering a smaller steak or doing something more. But don't just sit by and ignore what you already know. Consider eating less meat and be a reducitarian. Save our planet, improve your health, and save a lot of animals. Thank you so much.
And finally, to spice up our speech, we can use something known as speech sprinklers. They're basically a bunch of devices that we can use to enhance our presentations, our speeches, and just our language in general. There are quite a lot of these, but we're just going to cover two here. One is around rhetorical devices. These are things that we can use to enhance our speeches. A rhetorical device is a linguistic tool that we can use to say something in a certain way that helps evoke a reaction from our audience. There are a bunch of them that we can cover, like repetition and even rhetorical questions. But the one that I want to cover today is something known as chiasmus. This means taking a particular phrase and inverting that phrase within the same sentence. For example, we shall not negotiate out of fear, but we shall not fear to negotiate. Or from one of my favorite movies, Fight Club, where the character of Brad Pitt says,
"The things you own end up owning you."
The reason why these statements hit so nicely and they sound just so nice is because they give us a sense of balance. You take a particular statement and you invert it, and it just sounds right. And sprinkling even just one of these in our speeches can help elevate the language and the impact that we can have on our audience. And the second sprinkler is something known as the rule of three. And by the way, all these things, rule of three, rhetorical devices, story structures, speech openings, speech closings, and the through line have all been covered in previous videos. All of them will be linked somewhere if you want to go deeper into any of them. The rule of three means saying something in a pattern of three. It does not mean repeating something three times. It means saying something in a pattern of three. I came, I saw, I conquered. The government of the people, by the people, for the people. Blood, sweat, and tears. The reason why the rule of three works so well is because as humans, we are very, very inclined towards patterns. And the number three is the minimum number you need to create a pattern. And things just sound so much more persuasive when we say them in threes. It makes our arguments a lot more compelling, convincing, and credible. And it can help us become a more clear, concise, and confident speaker. Now, in case you need to make your arguments a lot more persuasive within 5 minutes, there's a certain structure created by an ancient Greek philosopher known as ethos, pathos, and logos. And it really helps us persuade our audiences towards our ideas. Check out what this structure means and how you can apply it right here.